Well, the presidential race could not be closer, but the White House isn't the only thing on the line November the 5th. Control of the United States Senate and the House also up for grabs. Democrats currently hold a very slim 51 to 49 margin. But there are signs the Senate could be on the verge of flipping to the Republicans. 34 seats are up this year, and Republicans have a real chance of winning enough of the competitive races to take over. And to the victors go the spoils, which means the control over the legislative process and the incoming president's agenda. A Republican Senate majority in 2024 would mean big shifts in issues like immigration, taxes, healthcare, and energy. Let's bring someone with a big stake in all of this. Republican North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer, who himself is up for re-election in November. All right, Senator, so glad to have you. And I want to jump right into what are the Republicans' chances of taking the Senate this November?
Well, thanks for having me, Governor. And I would say they're very high, and the expectations are high. We've had high expectations before, but clearly this go around, the map and the calendar really fit well into Republican strategy and chances, largely because so many more Democrats are up for re-election or Democratic seats are on the ballot than Republican seats. And coincidentally, the link between the presidential campaign and the Senate campaign could hardly be any tighter, because the battleground states for the Senate majority are the battleground states for the presidency. And there are some very interesting dynamics going on, particularly in the Rust Belt and some of the Democrat incumbents, how they're suddenly shifting toward support for, or at least being able to work with Donald Trump, the person that that their presidential candidate says is unfit for office.
You know, Senator, a couple of the races, it appears that the Republican challengers to incumbents are in such a good position that the Democrat incumbents are starting to pretend that they're really with Donald Trump on issues. I'm watching
It's
Pennsylvania,
amazing.
where a wonderful candidate, Dave McCormick, is putting it to Bob Casey. And then over in Montana, John Tester, who has been such a chameleon, and he's being very heavily tested by Tim Sheehy. So those are races that looks like could definitely tilt our way. Assess those, and then what are some others that, as you're looking at this, you're seeing maybe we have pickups?
Well, I think for sure, Governor, we have a pickup in West Virginia with Jim Justice, and that's, of course, an open seat with Joe Manchin not running for re-election. You hate to to jump the gun too much, but I think we could pretty much put that one in the bank. You raised Tim Sheehy in Montana. Of course, that's my next door neighbor. We see all of the ads. They've had so many tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ads, that we get to see them here in Bismarck, just what we want. That race right now, from the very beginning, a year ago till now, has just been moving our way. Tim Sheehy, in the latest polls I've seen, is ahead by 8-9 points. You're right, John Tester is trying to become more pro-Trump, but it's a little bit late and a little bit unbelievable. I think, though, when you talk about Bob Casey, for example, in Pennsylvania, obviously Pennsylvania is a big, battleground state for the presidency. Bob Casey's now running ads saying he can work with Donald Trump, bragging about how he'd worked with Donald Trump when Donald Trump was president. You've got the same thing, the same dynamic in Wisconsin, where Tammy Baldwin is running against Eric Huckabee, our candidate. It's considered a toss-up at this point. Some polls have him slightly ahead, some her slightly ahead, but it's again trending our way. And this is another case where Tammy Baldwin is now running ads talking about working with Donald Trump. And not to be outdone, Alyssa Slotkin, the representative from Michigan, running against my friend Mike Rogers for an open seat that's currently held by a Democrat. She's doing the same thing. She's talking about how she can work with Donald Trump, which is so interesting considering that just a month ago, Donald Trump was unfit for office by all these people, and they're now running literally against their presidential nominee. So you have a very weird dynamic there. And then I think you have to look to Ohio and Bernie Moreno running against Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown, the last statewide elected Democrat in Ohio. If Donald Trump does what I think he might do and win by double digits in Ohio, it's hard to imagine that we couldn't pick up another one there. And if that dynamic happened, this is what I love fantasizing about. If we were to win 5 seats in addition to West Virginia, and Montana, we'd have 56 Republican senators, Governor, and that would be more than we've ever had since the 17th Amendment passed.
You know, the economy is uncertain. You never know whether your money's worth as much today as it was yesterday. It's one of the reasons I buy gold from American Hartford Gold. American Hartford Gold has earned a 5-star rating and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Be sure to tell them Mike Huckabee sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first qualifying order. Call 844-417-1010 or text Mike to 998899. You'll be glad you did business with American Hartford Gold. What you've just described could be something akin to what we saw in 1980. Ronald Reagan comes in, took a lot of people with him. If Donald Trump does really well in these states, the Senate candidate does well. And if the Senate candidate is on fire, it helps Donald Trump. So I'm happy to see that Republicans are recognizing that lining up with Donald Trump is not a bad thing, especially right now with Kamala Harris's campaign faltering. I want to point out what you mentioned, because I thought it was very, very astute, and that is some of these Democrats are trying to pretend that they really want to work with Donald Trump. I'm thinking of the ad that I would love to pay for if I could, and it would say, Bob Casey, Slotkin, all of these Democrats, they say Trump is Hitler, but they want to work with Hitler. Now, which is it? Do you really think he's Hitler? Because if you do, you don't want to work with him. And if he isn't Hitler, why don't you lie about it? So make up your mind. But he's not Hitler. You want to work with him because you know he's probably going to be a better president than your person. I just wish that there could be a little more honesty and integrity, and the media would pick up on that as well.
Well, it is disappointing that the media doesn't pick up on these things. However, the American public, I believe, does pick up on these things. I believe that in many cases, and this is certainly true in my race, the Democrats are not only strategically not very wise, they're wrong. And you know, when you're wrong so much of the time and you're promoting the wrong ideas, it doesn't matter how effectively you promote them. But then when you throw in the new twist of hypocrisy, I don't think it's lost on particularly these swing voters, which aren't very big in number. As you know, it's a small sliver. They're the ones paying attention to this stuff, Governor, and I just think you can't fool them. I really do.
Immigration is a really big issue across the country. You are a border state, but not to Mexico, but to Canada. But now we're hearing about people coming across the Canadian border as well as the southern border of Mexico. Is it a big issue for the people in North Dakota? And what are they seeing and saying about the almost, we don't know how many, but it could be as many as 20 million people that have illegally crossed with not so much as a wave of the wand to try to tell them to turn back?
So it's an issue for everybody. It's an issue about the southern border. It has ramifications to the northern border. But I think more than anything, Governor, it gets back to the sort of the premise of your whole show, and that is common sense. I don't care where you live in America. When you see that your federal government is neglecting securing our southern border to the tune of 10 to 15 to 20 million illegal crossings over the course of the last 4 years or so, and they're bringing with them human trafficking, fentanyl trafficking, all kinds of drug trafficking, lots of crime. They're drawn, of course, to our sanctuary cities where they're being, secured away from federal officials and federal law enforcement. And it's the most absurd notion in modern history, in my view, the whole concept of a sanctuary city. That alone, even if it didn't touch a North Dakotan, is so absurd to the average North Dakotan that they know it's more than slightly wrong. But beyond that, it does touch North Dakotans. I mean, we're losing a couple of hundred people a day in this country, and some of them, yes, are North Dakotans, to fentanyl or other synthetic drug poisoning. That affects everybody, and it scares everybody, rightfully so. With regard to this northern border, we are seeing an increase, really a spike in northern border crossings as well, and encounters with people that are here illegally. But the bigger frustration for us is that so many of the resources that would secure the northern border, as well as accommodate legal commerce, and lots of it, there are by far our number one trading partner. There are 18 ports in North Dakota, land crossings, and to think that we would divert, resources there to deal with the crisis at the southern border, which is a completely unnecessary crisis, it not only frustrates us, but it frightens us at the same time. So this is a policy that's wrong on so many levels.